Good morning. I am still at Meriwether Lewis. I decided 2 days here was just what I needed, and I was taking in these beautiful, beautiful streams and creeks, hiking trails. I've loved every minute of it. So this morning, as I'm about to head out, I decided I had to come back one last time, kind of get my headspace before I hit the road. How can you not love this? Okay, so let me share a little travel hack with you. Whenever you're traveling, a lot of times you're going through areas that you're not quite as familiar with. So it makes it a little hard to find all of the things that you're wanting or that might bring that comfort of home. For me, sometimes that is as simple as a cup of coffee. I like to start my day with coffee, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. So I actually started subscribing to the services for several restaurants that I like to stop at for coffee. Number one, Sonic. They have huge iced coffee, and normally it's like $4, but if you get these little discounts and things like that sent to you, a lot of times you can get a cup for a lot less. Today, I got coffee for $1.30, and it's huge, like huge. I also subscribe to the subway service. I have found that one is extremely good, especially when traveling to higher cost cities. You can always find something that's familiar that you are going to like without breaking the bank. There's others as well, tons of different discounts, and as annoying as it might seem for you to be receiving text messages from restaurants, it's worth it if you're getting really good deals. I know a lot of the pizza places do it. Several of your different high-end food chains also have started doing it. So just look into it. Those are the comforts that are going to bring you a lot more joy whenever you're traveling, because it's going to help you find things that are within your budget that you still like, not some crazy weird food. Anyway, that's my travel hack. About 70 miles away from where I stayed last night is the Stones River battlefield. So I decided to stop by here on my way to my next destination. It's going to be a quick stop today. We're going to stamp our passport, find out a little bit more about this particular area and how it played a significant part in the Civil War. Now they have a really, really nice looking visitor center, so I can't wait to get some information from there. And then, again, another postcard, stamp my passport, do the driving tour, and head on down the road. It's not quite lunchtime yet, so my goal is to get in and out of here by lunchtime, and then on to the next. Got a busy day ahead, so let's go check it out. Push a button and listen to some music. This museum has a lot more information than Shiloh did, and the exhibits are more interactive. So there's the little sounds where you can listen to the stories right here, just like at the Civil Rights Museum. But there's also the buttons that you can push that tell a little bit more about different things in different places, which is pretty cool. And then there's the large scale things like this. this part. It's the old newspaper clippings, and they have actually been blown up so that you can see them fully, and there's a lot of them. So you can turn through and see all of the different clippings, which is pretty neat. Oftentimes when you go to museums, you see things and they're like this big. This one makes it where everyone can see it, and it's a lot more interactive that way. Now, last but not least, after we've looked at everything in the museum, we're going to go in and watch a brief video that's going to tell us a little bit about what we're going to do on the battlefield itself when we take our driving tour. It's going to tell us about the history and things like that. So let's go. It sounds like it just began. Okay, so now we have our map and we're going to go on the driving tour, but there is an app that we can download first. So I'm going to get the car, download the app, and it's actually going to take us on an audio tour. So while we're driving around, we're not just looking for those little markers everywhere and then having to read. It's actually going to give us more of a descriptive way to tour the battlefield, which is really awesome. So let's download that app. Stop one is as soon as you come in the gate, which means they have a nice big parking area as soon as you come in for the tour. Now, I hadn't started the audio tour yet, but it looks like the first cell phone sign is right over here. So let's check it out. Yeah, this is gonna be fun. This is a kind of small battlefield. There's only like 6 stops. Can't be that bad. Now, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm going to check out all of the signage first and walk down this path that they have. And then whenever I come back, I'm gonna listen to the cell phone tour. I could do both, but I think that I'll focus more on the details of the signs if I'm not listening to something. You can do either, and that's why it's here. But these signs have tons of information, and it looks like there's 4 or 5 on this row. So I'm gonna check them out and then listen. Yeah. This sign is actually really interesting because it talks about kind of what happened after the war in this area. So the people who created the National Cemetery, which is right across the road, actually settled in this area, and a lot of them were freed slaves. So they purchased land, they created an entire like community, and oddly enough, the community was called Cemetery. I don't know about the name, but it's pretty cool to know that this particular area was then resettled by the very people who were freed from this area. So it's pretty cool to know that. And this is one of the first signs you see whenever you come in. So I can only imagine with that information, what kind of other information that we're gonna find as we continue walking. This battlefield is, like I said, a lot smaller than Shiloh that we just went to. So everything is very informative really quickly, but there aren't 600 plus signs. So the signs that they have are extremely thoughtful as to certain subjects. Here's another one, so let's check it out. It looks like in taking the route that I did and cutting through on the small trail, I actually cut over to the other side of the battlefield, which is okay. They have this trail that goes to an exhibit, and so I'm gonna brave it and go. There are so many amazing butterflies in this area, and I know that's completely like one of those random thoughts, but while I've been in Tennessee, I've probably seen more butterflies than I have on any other trip. And was just reminded of that because a few just flew across my path. It is so beautiful here. this trail is winding along the edge of the battlefield. And the sign that we just passed actually said that for 6 hours, this was the position that was held into this field. 6 hours! Can you imagine being in one tiny place for 6 hours while there's gunshots flying all around you? It's crazy. Something that a lot of people do at battlefields like these, because they have hiking trails everywhere, is to come out here just to exercise. And it's a really great place to do so because it's super peaceful. And most of the time, these trails are very well maintained. So like there were some people who just were running and they totally ran past me. The other day I saw some mountain bikers out at Shiloh just kind of going through. It's a really great place. Yeah. Okay, it's getting hot like an oven in the car now. Started out as a cold fall morning. That's what it felt like. Now it's like 100 in the car again. I don't understand. But we're about to call the number on the driving tour, and I have it programmed in, and let's listen to what it has to say.
Powered by Onsell. Hello, and welcome to Stones River National Battlefield. This tour is brought to you by Onsell Audio, and is one tool
I love
you can
these.
use to learn more about Stones River National Battlefield. Stops are found throughout the park and average 2 minutes in length. We're very interested in hearing your feedback about this audio tour, and we
Let's
encourage.
just see if we can skip. They sent me a text with the proper app now. Go figure.
Enter your stop number now. Or press star 0
Stop
to
one.
make us your- On the bitter cold, drizzly day after Christmas, 1862, Union General William Rosecrans's army marched from Nashville to Murfreesboro, where Confederate General Braxton Bragg's army had established.
Yet another reason it's really important to read the signs. This sign right here told me something really interesting. Between the railroad tracks, way over there, you can see them right there, and this sign, there were about 30,000 troops crammed into this one little section. Can you imagine 30,000 people in maybe, let's see, 3 football fields? Maybe. Crazy. But this particular battle was one of the more bloody battles. 24,000 killed. I can see why, considering they were all crammed in like sardines to this little postage stamp of land. That's why the signs are important though. You would never know that many people were here had it have not been for that. I take that back. Some people would have known, because some people know all there is to know about all of the wars and things like that, and to them I applaud them. My memory is not that photographic, so there's no way I would have known this. So for people like me, that sign was so important for perspective. So important. Stop 4 is the last stop that's in this part of the park, and then we have to go down the road and across the street to see the others. But this particular stop right here is a great place for you to just really get a perspective of the munitions and the cannons and how they kind of work together. Now each of these had to be pulled in by a horse and usually a team because they were pretty heavy. They had the cannonballs inside, and then of course the cannons themselves were very heavy. Now behind me are a couple of more of the things that they would haul in the munitions on. So that's really interesting to see, because typically on a battlefield you see cannons, but you don't see this part of it near as much. So that was kind of interesting. Now I think we're gonna go across the street to the National Cemetery and make our next stop. Coming into this National Cemetery, I actually learned something completely different than the others based on this one sign right here. Basically, it says that in 1863, over 3,000 Union and Confederate soldiers were dead. And in 1865, they actually had to go in and basically dig up the remains of those who had passed away 2 years earlier to inter them in this national cemetery. Now, of this, the Confederate soldiers were not allowed to be buried in this cemetery. So they actually shipped their remains to their homes or to anyone who would claim them. Otherwise, if they couldn't be identified based on Union or Confederate, they were put into unknown graves. That is wild knowledge that I'd never gathered anywhere else. So that makes this even more symbolic of a really, really horrific time. So not only was the war bad, but those who then had to create the cemetery and bury those again had to be re-traumatized by that situation. And like that first sign said a while ago, a lot of those people were the people who ended up settling this area, so they were freed slaves. It's crazy to think that that would be your job, would be to go find remains and rebury them. It is very common, I've noticed, that whenever I come to cemeteries, especially the national cemeteries, people leave coins on top of the graves. And supposedly the reason why that all started was, of course, because of the Greek myth where you had to leave coins to ferry the person across after death. Now, I don't think that's necessarily what everyone does it for now, but this particular cemetery has coins all along this one side. I haven't seen any on this side, so I don't know if there's significance, but there are considerable amount of pennies and nickels and dimes. And of course, you can always leave those on graves. But, you know, it does have a meaning, so you're supposed to do it for a purpose, not just because. Another thing that makes this place pretty cool, the signs here. They're placed throughout the entire area of the National Cemetery, and each one of them has something very significant to say on there. So it's pretty interesting and a really good way to kind of pay tribute to those who are here. So that's kind of a different thing from some of the other cemeteries we've been to as well. I think every time I come to a site like this, I learn a little bit more, and it makes me really have a better understanding of a time that has passed that clearly I was never a part of. So it's really good to understand and grasp that, because with that, you can understand so many more things that are going on in today's climate. It's amazing how something so long ago can paint a picture of what's currently going on for you. So we're gonna go to the last stop and see what we're departing the car for the final stop at this battlefield. This particular place is right up this little path. See that right there? That's where we're going. But of course, first we're gonna check out these. Yay! I do remember going to Pea Ridge and Wilson's Creek battlefield, and both of them had very interesting things that they had done to commemorate their soldiers. They actually had a get-together. That's right, a get-together where everyone came together who had served. All the veterans came together to honor the fact that they all had been at this juncture in life at this time. It didn't matter what colors that they served, they all came together as one. And in order to do that, it probably was not easy to bury the hatchet, but they wanted to make sure that they honored all of their fellow comrades. Now, not all battlefields had that happy, wonderful little moment at the end where everybody could hold hands and say, it's gonna be okay. But the importance of memorials like this did that without having to have the actual get-togethers in many cases. Veterans everywhere respect one another because they've all served a purpose and a cause. And perhaps that is the biggest brotherhood that one can see out of all of this. We can all take a little bit away from the past, again, in order to build a better tomorrow. Maybe that's what we should learn from battlefields.